In this video, I'm going to show you how to tuck the front bumper, raise these side rock sliders, and push in this rear bumper, all for free so that you can improve the performance of your Redcat Gen 9. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Troy and this is Roadside RC. You'll tend to find me bashing and crawling and drifting and racing, plus doing product review videos and how-tos. I've been recently just got to drive this Redcat Gen 9 for the first time, and I definitely noticed the catching on both front and rear bumpers plus the rock sliders. So before I get into putting a lot of the stickers on and really trying to dress up the body a little bit, I want to look at these bumpers and the rock sliders to look for clearance. We're going to start with the front bumper and look at how can we actually shove that front bumper in more to create extra clearance here on the front. Then we'll move to the rear, then we'll move to the rock sliders. We're going to start by actually just removing the front bumper with these two screws right here. What we're looking at here is actually rather simple. We're looking at what is the framework inside the bumper here. What we want to do is shove this bumper back even further. But if we want to shove it back more, what are we going to have to do? And it looks like we're going to have to take off the ends of the bumper tubes, because as they go back, it's going to hit the servo. And then we need to look at right in this area, because everything here is going to hit the frame rails and this bumper mount. But before we do that, I'm going to put it back into the stock location. I'm actually going to measure what kind of approach angle that we have here so that we know how much we've actually improved it. This is quite simple. All we do is a piece of wood plus a angle finder. And as we come up, what we notice is in the factory location, we first hit around 60 degrees, which honestly is actually a pretty dang good value, if I'm honest, for a factory truck. But we're going to see what can we do from tire to bumper there in order to make that even better. With just a few minutes of work now, here is where we've gotten to. We cut in right here and all along this portion. Removed about 10 millimeters total from where the bumper was mounting before to now here. It slides back into the chassis now about 10 more millimeters, which is really, really great. If you can see in here, I had to take out a lot of this interior support structure to get it to fit. But really, honestly, short work with a little rotary tool here with a cutoff wheel. Plus, like I said, I had to shorten these so that they would not hit the steering servo. When that slides all the way in now, looks great. And like I said, 10 millimeters more back that direction. This is basically just almost flush, once we push it all the way back, just almost flush with the front of the body. So that is very good. So it means if we pushed it back any further, we'd start to actually have body overhanging the bumper, which would not be good. The other thing I noticed is if we started to really come back anymore, we're going to start having the tire get into the bumper, which is fine. We could actually clearance the back bottom side of this bumper, so that's not an issue. What I need to do now, a couple things. So first is I'm going to have to re-drill new mounting holes here, which is pretty easy. All you got to do is mark the plastic with something like an awl here, or if you have a marker that can get in there, mark it and then just drill a new hole and it'll mount up nicely. The other thing that we're going to do is we have to actually trim the bottom of the body here, because it now sits on top of the bumper since it's been pushed back, and the latch system won't actually latch. Pretty simple. Again, we're going to pull the bumper out, just mark where it interferes, and then just take a very sharp X-Acto knife and just trim the body around. I'll probably make it just one straight line all the way around, all the way to the fender. There we are. It is all trimmed up. Bumper is tucked in nicely. Like I said, just had to trim basically a little bit off of the body. There's actually a kind of a gap here in the front of the body as it comes from the factory, and then it sticks down just a few millimeters, and that's all I had to trim on both sides. Was that amount. It now comes down, fits cleanly. I ended up trimming just a little bit more on the back side of the bumper in order to help my finger get to the latch mechanism. So a little bit there, but otherwise, I mean, look, I've now gained 10 millimeters of clearance, and it really makes basically no difference when it comes to the aesthetics of this truck. So let's measure how much difference we got in now approach angle. The board, we're angling it up against the tire, and as we come up here, we are now looking at just shy of 70 degrees. I don't know if you can see that really, just shy of 70 degrees. So we didn't quite gain 10 degrees, but just shy of it is what we gained for this, which is honestly a really good result for free. As we focus our attention now to the back of the truck, you'll see this whole rear bumper sticks out almost 15 millimeters. I don't know with this whole mechanism back here and how the body rotates and everything, are we going to really be able to get that 15 millimeters of clearance and gain that by shoving that bumper in? I'm not sure. I think this is going to be a little bit more complicated than the front. But again, first way to get started is get the body off, and there's this brace and the bumper that all needs to come off. But before we do that, we need to measure the departure angle, which is much shallower than the front approach angle. We're sitting just a little bit under 50 degrees. It's wobbling around right at that. To get to the rear bumper, we actually have to start with this panel right here. There's 2 screws in it, and it comes off. It kind of works as like a filler panel for the back of the body, plus a little bit of a support. When you raise the body up, it actually hits this panel. I don't know if we actually need this. This might be a sacrificial thing that stays over there and we never put it back on. Now that it's off though, we can get to the same 2 screws that we had in the front. Then with that off, I think this is going to be a very similar proposition to the front, and we're going to hack this thing up and shove it in. Now I'm going to admit to you, I might have gone a little bit too far here on the rear of the truck. I realized that there was absolutely nothing holding me back from slamming this bumper all the way in until it's basically flush, which, as it turns out, actually worked out really, really well. It's going to gain us a bunch of clearance, almost that whole 15 millimeters in. I made it very thin through here on this bumper though, so I haven't mounted it all the way yet, but you can see I basically cut everything out around those two standoffs in order to get the bumper all the way in. Just like on the front, I had to trim a little bit right off the rear of the body in order to let that go through. Plus, I had to make sure that there was clearance right here. These are those brackets for the tilt of the truck. I had to make sure that there was room for those. You can see I have not, as I kind of predicted, put this part back on. It sits right here and it covers that little itty bitty gap right there. I just don't care. I just don't care. So I am going to leave that off. The reason why I say I think I might have gone too far with this is the bumper is a little weak now. All right, so it's going to mount. It's going to be fine. It's still going to provide some protection here for the bottom of the body, and it still looks okay. But if you catch a rock or anything on it on the trail, it's going to bend back. It may eventually break. How much did we gain? We were at about a 50 degree. I gotta watch that I'm not pushing that bumper in too much. So here we go. We are now at just shy of 60 degrees. So there we are. We again gained about 10 degrees total departure angle, just like we gained about 10 degrees on the front. We're going to now turn our attention to the side of the body here and these rock sliders. I want to see what's possible for moving these up, which will require probably trimming the bottom of the body off here. The bottom of this whole side rail here then sticks down somewhere on the neighborhood of about 10 millimeters. So as it turns out, this has the opportunity to be much easier than I thought it was. 4 screws right here and your handy dandy rock sliders come right off. So because of the shape of these, you can basically just flip them over like this, bolt them right back in place. The body will still sit inside of it. Yes, you'll still have to trim the bottom of the body off for clearance, but you will immediately gain basically all of that 10 millimeters clearance that we're looking for. Now, one thing that's a little bit kind of a boo of this method is that you still have that kind of shape sticking out there. It's not really the rock slider shape that you'd want, but it is literally free. The other option is I found some of these little aluminum standoffs, basically between 9 to 10 millimeter long aluminum standoffs that I can put in here just like this, screw the rock slider back on as it was intended, and it will look just like it was, except it'll be moved up that 10 millimeters, trim the side of the body. Done and done. Now I will have to raid, of course, my screw bin because, of course, the factory screws aren't going to be long enough. But this is really, honestly, the best solution. It is just that 10 millimeter offset. I might see if I can 3D print a little 10 millimeter standoff for these and make that available to you. And then bang, just like that, 45 minutes later, we have 4 little spacers, all 10 millimeters thick, that will go on here beautifully. I have some, I think targeting better would be 17 millimeter, but I have some 15 millimeter long screws that I believe will just work. And while those are printing, I hacked off 10 millimeters on the bottom of the body here. We're gonna bolt these skids right back on. And look at that, they bolt up just beautifully, all sides, just like that. And we're right at the bottom of that rail, so looking great. 15 millimeter screws are probably just a little short. Probably would love if you had a couple extra millimeters on there. Just not what I had laying around in my screw bin. And there we are. Look at that. It all works just beautifully. Now think about this. We moved the front bumper in 10 millimeters. We raised the rock sliders 10 millimeters. And we pushed the rear bumper in maybe, let's call it 12, 13, something like that. All of this, and it was free. It was absolutely free. Yes, I paid a little bit of money for the filament that I used to print out those side pieces. Other than that, absolutely free. Took, hour, maybe 2 hours of my time. And now the truck should perform better, and it still looks good. You still can't really tell that a lot was really done to it. But guess what? 10 millimeters of body and sides down here. Now the truck looks a little bit sportier. We took some width, you took some of that height out of that body. This is good. This is definitely to help make this whole truck look a little bit better. If you have a Redcat Gen 9, I hope you found this video useful. I have more stuff that I am doing to this truck, so there'll be a whole playlist over here of Redcat Gen 9 videos and modifications and running and all that kind of stuff. So if you're curious about any of that, feel free to hop over here in that other videos, and we will see you there. So thank you for your time, and goodbye.